What is up, kinfolk? How y'all doing? I hope y'all doing well. I did a review of Candace Owens' trailer for The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, and I got the opportunity to watch it, and let me just say, it wasn't bad, but I was slightly disappointed from the trailer. If you guys had the opportunity to watch the trailer, she goes straight into it, right? She shows the tax returns and that Black Lives Matter, the organization, has amassed about close to $80 million within a year's span of time. Even going into talking about some of the little scandalous things that Black Lives Matter had bought into during this 1 year span of time. My first reaction was, we get to see where the money has gone. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Let's go. What ends up happening is we go into the details, we get to the numbers at the 50-minute mark of this documentary. And this documentary is an hour and 18 minutes long. So you might be asking, well, what's the first 50 minutes about? Well, the first 50 minutes is about the George Floyd case. This is where I say I was kind of disappointed. I'm not going to say that it was a bad documentary, but a little bit for me, it was kind of a little bit of false advertising. I will say this, it makes sense with the timeline. So I'm going to kind of break down how the movie is structured, some of the things I found kind of interesting from it. And I'm not going to give too many details because I definitely want you guys to go and check out the documentary. Don't just take my word for it. You have the introduction, but they go into George Floyd as a person. They interview his housemates who he lived with for 4 years up until the point of his death. And George Floyd died in May of 2020. When it comes to the part of the tax returns started, I want to say either it was in June or July of 2020 and then ended in June or July of 2021. So it makes sense, the timeline. As unfortunate as it was one of those big deaths that did happen and did help amass a lot of the money. The next segment of the video goes into Derek Chauvin, who is the officer who was accused and tried for the murder of George Floyd. It goes into his family life, the people who knew him best from his officers, fellow officers, and their perspective on who he was as a person. The next step of the movie was to go into the court case itself. And this is where I found things very interesting. When they found George, initially he was in the car with his drug dealer. From the toxicology report, it said that in order to have an overdose of fentanyl, you have to have at least 0.3 nanograms of fentanyl in your system. George Floyd had 0.11. Also, one of the things they found from his autopsy report was that he had an enlarged heart. So based on the evidence of the case, what some people would speculate is that if the police were never involved and he would have just drove home and laid down in his bed, he more than likely might have died. It gives some other key points of the case that I feel were not really brought up in the media. There was a lot of pressure from all sides, from politicians, from celebrities, saying that George Floyd must get justice. After that, it goes into the post George Floyd. Derek Chauvin is charged for murder and is actually, going to jail for a murder of George Floyd. The roommates of George said that they hadn't even seen any family come for George after he died. They never came and collected his stuff. When he passed away, they had to carry his part of the rent and the bills, and they had not received any money from Black Lives Matter in regards to that. Now, if the actual family, like his brother and sisters, if they got the money, that's possible, but the roommates never got any money. And they even said in the 4 years that George had actually lived with them, none of his family members had come to see him, which is absolutely crazy, because once again, you see the spectacle, you see the family members coming out, and it's like, y'all never showed up to even collect his stuff. And I think the documentary, she started it in 2021, so we had elapsed a whole year. He still gets mail to his house, and he still has his stuff still at his house, and no one's come to claim it, which is kind of sad. Next part of the post was the autonomous zone. George Floyd's hometown is right now. A lot of the stuff is boarded up. It's really sad to see. They said that the homicide rate and the murder rate has definitely increased. A lot of the shop owners can't rebuild because a lot of the vandalism, and even like in terms of the crime rates. And once again, where is Black Lives Matter? Absolutely nowhere to be seen. So that's the first 50 minutes of the video. I would say that that was very eye-opening, very enlightening for me, because I didn't know a lot about the case. I didn't really pay that close attention to it because there was 2020, there was so much stuff going on at that time. After the first 50 or so minutes, we go into the actual tax return. Patrisse Cullors, who is one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, she is a lesbian. Why that is important is because close to $2.4 million based on the documentary, all that money has been donated to LGBTQ, I don't know it, neither do you, organizations. It just keeps getting longer every year. And then when it comes to our own personal, into the mansions, which we already know, close to 900,000, I want to say, on the tax return went to her baby daddy. About that much also went to her brother. And, you know, it's very interesting because when you talk about a lot of scams, they typically put all their money into real estate and into businesses. Is a lot of that money gets diversified, so that way it's really hard to actually figure out where all the money is gone. She tried to reach out to some of the organizations that got the money and everything went to voicemail, but one of the ones that she was able to get on the phone with, they said that they work with trying to teach people how to protest. And they also talk about how, you know, we want to also empower these people by letting them know that if they need any legal help or getting bailed out of jail, they can. Which answers the question, because a lot of people had said, people have come into our community and we have no idea who these people are. They're not from here. And clearly they're not from here because they have no respect for us. They're destroying our businesses. Well, they weren't. All in all, I would say it was a really good documentary. It just caught me off guard that the majority of it was about George Floyd. I would say out of 10, I'd give it a 7. Let me know what you guys think. Have you guys watched the video? What was your take? If you haven't watched it, I do encourage you to watch it. If you have a moment, go ahead and like the video. If you did like it, go ahead and subscribe for future videos. Thank you so much, kinfolk, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.